1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is JB. I'm a dev lead in the Visual Studio Tools for Unity team. I'm running the experience that bridges Visual Studio and Unity. I just relocated recently to Seattle. This is my first build as a Microsoft employee. I'm very excited to be here, so bear with me. All right. Today, I'm going to show a small project, and I'm going to create actually a new Unity project. For those of you who don't know Unity, it's a game creation engine platform editor to easily create 2D and 3D games for all major platforms. And today we'll be building a very simple game, actually a basketball game, in less than 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're inside Unity. I'm going to do a new project. Let's call it basketball. And let's get started. All right, Unity is setting things up. So this is the main Unity interface. It can get pretty scary at the beginning, but it's actually pretty simple. Here, you have the main scene view of your game. It's where you'll drop all your 3D components, and you'll get a view of the entirety of your scene. You have a view of your game through the main camera of your game. Here, you have the hierarchy of everything that is inside your scene. Here, you have all the different assets. It's folder-based, so it's very simple. You can drop all kinds of assets in there. And on the right, you have the inspector to change all the properties of everything that is inside your scene. The nice thing about Unity is that you can modify everything live. And it's a very iterative and design-first process to create your game. All right, so we need to build a basketball game. So the first thing that we need is to create a floor. So I'm going to go ahead, game object, 3D object, and I'm going to add a plane. So in my main scene view, I see my plane. I'm going to rename it to floor so that in the hierarchy, it's very easy to see what is doing what. It's perfectly centered, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger on the X and Z axis. I'm going to save my scene. All right, so if I switch to the camera, this is the only thing I see. The next thing I'm going to change is the light that lights my scene. The position of the light doesn't matter. The only thing that matters for this directional light is the rotation, the orientation of the light. All right, so here I'm going to set it to 10, 40, and 0, so that we have a nice sunset. All right, so this is what my game looks like right now. Very good. So the next thing that we need, if we're going to play basketball, is a basketball hoop. There's, on the web, a lot of resources to get 3D models. So this is what my hoop looks like. And one of the nice things about Unity is that it recognizes a lot of different assets from a lot of different tools. So this is a 3ds file, and I'm just going to drop it inside the asset folder of my game. So this is my hoop. I'm going to ask Unity to generate colliders for it, meaning that it will properly collide with everything that is on my scene. Let's apply. And the only thing I need to do is to take my hoop and place it on my scene. All right. So I'm going to set it to nice round values, 0, 0, and 10. All right. I'm going to make it rotate to face the camera. Very good. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger on all axes. So if I switch to my game view, I see my hoop. All right. I'm going to use this opportunity to drop material on my floor so that it looks a little bit nicer. All right. So now I have a game with a camera that doesn't move with a 3D hoop. So the next thing that we want to address is how to move in this game. The nice thing with Unity is that it comes with different packages that are part of the standard assets with Unity. So I can just say assets, import package, and I'm going to include the characters package, which imports in my project code if I want first-person view or a third-person view. So this comes directly from Unity, but Unity also has this asset store. The asset store kind of works like an app store, but in the Unity asset store, you can get for free or purchase 3D models, all kind of assets. 3D models, sounds, textures, even scripts. Some of them are very high quality. And if, like me, you do not have any taste for everything that related to design, it's very easy to get started creating a game using the Unity Asset Store to get assets. And then you can actually implement your game using pre-made assets made by people who actually have taste, unlike me. All right. So this is my game view. I'm going to delete the existing static camera. So the scene is missing a full screen camera. And I'm going to go into the standard asset folder that I imported. Characters. We're going to use a first-person character. Prefab. A prefab inside Unity is something that you can reuse. A collection of a model or scripts that you can use multiple times in your project. I'm going to drop a FPS controller on my scene and change its position. All right, so that would be 0, 1, and -10. All right, so if I switch to the game mode, I have the same thing as before, but if I start the game directly inside Unity, I can start looking around using the mouse. It's built in with the FPS controller. It even has sounds. You should hear footsteps when I walk. I can jump. All right. And just like in any game, all right, I'm going to make the sound a bit quieter. And just as any game, I can fall off. Oh. All right. I'm sure you've seen that happen in a lot of games. So this is what I have. I have a first-person character that can move across my scene. I have a basketball hoop. So the next thing I need is a ball. Let's go ahead, switch to the scene, and create a sphere. That will be my ball. So, all right, 0. Let's make it 1 unit height. Let's make it a little bit smaller. All right. See, it's very easy in Unity to just play around and modify the values, and you have a direct feedback, and you see in your scene or in the game view what is happening. So you have a ball. I have a sphere. It doesn't do much. It's just there, so we need to modify it. All right, let's switch back to the scene view. I'm going to add a material on the ball so that it looks red. All right. I'm going to add a rigid body so that the ball has a physical existence in my scene. It has a mass of 1 unit, which means that if I start playing the game, it should fall to the ground. All right. But that's not how balls work. So we're going to add a new material to this ball to tell the Unity engine that we need this material to bounce when it falls on the ground. So assets, create physics material. Let's call that bouncy. All right. And let's use the maximum value for bounciness, 1. Let's drop this material on my ball. So now if I play the game, it bounces. Awesome. All right. So now we have a basketball hoop, we have a player and a ball. Next thing that we do is to make the character throw the ball. All right, so let's rename sphere to ball so that it's clear. Oh, didn't take. All right. So what I'm going to do now is take the ball from my scene and drop it in my assets. So what Unity does here is that it takes one instance of this object and makes it into a prefab, something that I can reuse in my game by simply dropping it. All right, so now I have 3 balls in my scene. All right. It's a prefab, I can reuse it, but it's not what we want to do. So let's delete them. All right. So now the next thing that we do is to create a script, a piece of code that we're going to attach to the player and that will throw the balls. Let's go ahead and create a new C# script. Unity is using Mono, the open source virtual machine, to run your code. And all the code that you write can be in C#. Using Unity 5, at least Unity 5.2, we've worked with Unity to make sure that Unity natively supports Visual Studio. So I just created a C# file. I double-click on it, and Unity is going to open Visual Studio, and everything will work the way you expect it to as a C# developer, except that we're adding a few things. All right, so let's start anew. On the right, we have the Unity Project Explorer, which gives the same view of your project in Visual Studio and inside Unity. And let's write the script to shoot balls. So we're going to declare a class, shooter, and we're going to make it extend MonoBehavior. MonoBehavior is a special type into Unity, and you need to use every time you're going to write a piece of code that is attached to an object inside your Unity game. Next thing I'm going to do is to add a couple fields. A rigid body that we're going to call prefab, and a float that we're going to call speed with a default value of 10. And the next thing that we're going to do is to attach this shooter script to the first-person character. I can look for it, shooter. And what you can see in the inspector is that Unity reflects on all the public fields of your MonoBehavior, and it allows you to change it so that you can try directly and live and see the immediate effect of changing a public property of your game directly inside the Unity editor. So I'm going to say that this shooter shoots basketballs. Oops. And we'll keep the speed of 10 right now. The next thing that we need to do is to actually implement the piece of code that will throw the basketball. Let's switch back to Visual Studio. The way Unity works is that you declare a few methods that have a special name that the Unity engine recognizes and calls at different moments of your game. Using the Visual Tools for Unity, we provide you wizards to pick the messages that are the methods that you need to use to communicate with the Unity engine. In our case, we're going to use the update method. What update does is that it's going to be called by the Unity engine at every frame of your game. So let's simply write if input. Those are types that come directly from Unity. Get button down fire1. Fire1 is the default name for the button that is on a keyboard bound to left click. So what we're going to do here is to create a new instance of the prefab that we've drag and dropped from the editor. Create an instance of it. It will need a rigid body, and we just say instantiate. And we're going to instantiate the prefab. The next arguments are where, and we're going to use the transform position and the transform rotation that are associated with the object on which we put the script, in our case, the player. Simply, it just means that we're going to spawn this prefab at the exact position of the player. All right? And the next thing we're going to do is to give this new object a velocity. This velocity is going to go forward and halfway between vertical and horizontal. And we'll multiply it by the speed. All right? So if we switch back to Unity and play the game, I can walk around, and I can start throwing balls, and hopefully score a few points. No? Yes! Thank you. And I can modify everything very easily. So if I set the speed to 100, like suddenly I start throwing balls very fast, so fast that they don't collide. All right, let's set it back to a reasonable value of 10. Dang, all right. All right, so in just a few minutes we created a game. And one of the nice things about Unity is that with the build settings, it's just a matter of selecting where you want to export the game. Unity supports all major mobile OS, all major desktop OS, all platforms. For instance, I've created an export of this game for UWP. So if I go ahead and start without debugging, this is an export of the game created for UWP. I don't want to build it. The game is made with Unity. All right. And this is my game. That's probably when I played too much with the speed. And you can even export it to WebGL. And this is the same game running inside your browser, inside Edge. Export it as WebGL from Unity. And you can export it for iOS, Android very easily. And that's about it. So we've seen that in just a few minutes, we've created a very basic game. It's very easy to start with Unity. You just need a few assets. Unity has a lot of tutorials to get you going. And using Visual Studio, get best of both worlds. You get Visual Studio for the scripting part and Unity for everything that is design time. And this allows you to create cross-platform games very easily. Thank you very much.